Hello and welcome to day 9. And here we are, and we have a screen now because we're doing drawing, so I've changed angles and stuff, so that's fun. So right, day 9. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at hands. So many hands. So a lot of what I've learned in terms of drawing and stuff is through YouTube video tutorials, really. Two people I recommend that you check out, and it sort of depends on what you're looking for, but still, these two people, very good. Drawing with Jazza and Ethan Becker. There's two YouTube channels you should go check out if you want to improve your drawing in terms of things. They're good. Very good. In terms of fundamentals, more Jazza in terms of practice, perfect practice in terms of drawing. Go for Ethan. And a lot of what I've learned is through those two, so those are the two you need. Right, so hands. We're starting off with hands. Yes, as you can see from my layers, I have done a lot of stuff. I am basically going over what I've already learned. But I feel like some of these things that I have learned might help other people, so that's why I'm going over them. So, going over hands. Hands are usually said as the bane of an artist's life, because they're hands. They're bloody annoying. Like, they're so complicated, and they've got different limbs, and they do weird things, and you can, yeah. If you're wondering why I'm wearing this glove, it's because this wonderful drawing tablet that I have, which is one which you draw straight onto, so you need a sort of glove to make sure you're not putting horrible skin smudge everywhere. Anyway, so we have the hands. So what I started off by doing was just drawing on top of the hands, which is good in a way in terms of understanding the shape and stuff, but well, not really. It just basically just helped me simplify slightly, but it wasn't exactly a good way of helping me. As you can see over here, you've got a bunch of sort of just me drawing on the palms, and that was me trying to work out where palms bend, like where they bend in terms of the hand in each of these different positions. After that, I sort of rethought, and I was like, okay, let's go back to shapes. So what I've done is I've gone over all of these different hands, and I've tried to find the same shapes throughout them. So I'm trying to simplify the hand to certain shapes so that when I'm drawing I can just like work out the things. So let's take this hand right here, which is quite a simple hand really. If you're wondering, my keyboard's over there, so I do quick things, so I go over there a lot, so yeah. Right, so let's look at this hand. We didn't need to go that far up, but whatever. So this hand is sort of your normal spaced out hand, so it's quite simple. So I try to look at this sort of like what shapes there are. So we've got a sort of shape going over here, which is like your thumb, so you're doing a thumb thing. And then you usually have this normal sort of shape that you have here. Whenever I've looked at tutorials on how to draw a hand, you always get this sort of, they'll do this, they'll do this sort of shape where it's sort of, yeah, they'll make you do a sort of triangle like that. Then they'll make you do the little fingers as well, lines, and I've always felt like that's not exactly helpful, because as soon as you do that, it's hard to work out. You have to know how the thumb goes and all the fingers go in order to actually make this into a hand, and it sort of turns into sausage hands, which is why I don't really like it too much. So that's why I've been looking at trying to do these two things. So you can see this thumb, it sort of does almost that shape when it's going around. And then this finger will come up like this, and they're sort of, fingers tend to make almost rectangles sort of shapes, and it's quite weird. But by drawing on tops of a bunch of different hands and working out sort of where each part of the hand goes is really useful. So I've worked out that your pointing finger will always come off the palm. It'll always come off at a straight line. So in all of these different things, in all of these different ones, so you got like here, it's coming off straight. This one is coming off that point. This one is coming off that point. This one, just all of them, it is coming off straight on that point. So that bit. Then you have the pinky. So whenever looking at the pinky finger, you can always see that there's this little bump here on the palm and the pinky finger. So when you're drawing your sort of your hand and your shapes, once you've drawn your base palm shape, you know that the pinky will come slightly off the palm. So like here it's doing it. Here it's like bending slightly off. Here it's got a little bump. So they're always like sort of got this little bump here for the pinky. And it's basically working out those things. These two fingers, they tend to be together. So they tend to always have this sort of shape, this shape right here. They tend to always sort of be together, and you can just sort of do an easy shape, which is just like that. And then that will be your two fingers, which are your two middle fingers, which you can do. And that's sort of the thing. So I've learnt that sort of thing. And so then from this I've sort of actually started drawing different hands, because learning your shapes is one thing, actually using those shapes to actually draw the hand, that's a different thing. So one thing I've learned is when I've tried to do, you know, your normal sort of the shape they've taught you all the time, where you do your palm shape and then you do your fingers with the lines, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work because the palm always looks very square, and that's not what palm is, and which I've worked out from looking at these pictures. Because I mean, you can see all of these palms I've done, they aren't square. They're several shapes. They're like octagonal, hexagonal, all of those different things. So I worked out a shape which works for me and helps me do hands, really. And that shape is basically this. So it's a basic, I call it a mitten. It's a mitten. That's literally what it is. And it basically tells me where the thumb is and where the palm is. And I can then work out how to do the rest, because I've studied these hands and worked out every time where these sort of fingers tend to lay. Also, it helps when you're drawing a hand, you know, you have a separate hand that you can use to put in these different positions and work out. It's a bit harder when it comes to the right hand that you're doing, if you're right-handed and you draw with that hand, but you know, it helps. So let's say I want to draw, let's say we want to draw just a basic, let's say we want to make a basic sort of stretched out hand, like that one. So I would start off by holding out a hand in front of me, working out where that mitten shape would be and what it looks like. So it would be sort of like this, and then it goes up, and there, that's my mitten shape there, and then it goes in, sort of thing. So we got my mitten shape. Now, from the things that I told you earlier in terms of where the fingers are, pointing finger will come out here, and because it's a spread out shape, the actual pinky finger comes off on this corner right here. It'll come out there, which is actually no, wait. If we're going really spread out, the pointing finger will actually lay on this corner, more or less, because you sort of have a curve between the pinky finger and the thumb when you're spreading it out like that. And that's why when you have the L, you have that sort of curve. But yeah, your thumb and your finger will do a curve there, so... Literally, if you want to be able to draw hands and be the person who can draw hands, study a bunch of hands. You just have to study hands, work out different shapes for when hands are in different ways, and then you can pretty much draw hands. But you don't have to learn a bunch of different hands to draw hands. You can just learn 1 or 2 positions and use those over and over, which is a lesson from Ethan. Like I said, I've learnt a lot from watching other people and doing that sort of thing, and then also studying sort of different things. So in actuality, if we look back at this, the pinky finger is actually slightly underneath that sort of corner bit of our palm here. So we're going to draw it sort of coming out here. Like that. Now it looks a bit weird at the moment, I know, but that's just how it is. And then you've got the 2 middle fingers, which we can just draw our simple shape for, and we can work it out. So whenever I do those 2 fingers, it's always useful knowing where the middle finger is, because where the middle finger is, that top bit, the like curve up, will go towards that middle finger. I think I've actually placed this pinky finger a bit weird. Yeah, the pinky finger is actually not exactly on that corner, is it? What am I doing with this pinky finger? Pinky finger is probably more like this. But yeah, we're drawing, it's sort of a lot of trial and error. It's sort of, you gotta keep doing it over and over and you eventually work it out. Now, with the thumb, because we've drawn this mitten shape, we've pretty much drawn it up to this point. So all you have to do is do a curve and then another curve. And there you go, you've got your thumb. Which I quite like in terms of doing those shapes, because it means I don't have to do too much. And it's quite interesting. So yeah, there you've got a sort of weird hand, but it works in terms of what we've been, or what you're sort of getting at least that shape down. Because an actual hand, you wouldn't be so angular. Although there are parts of the hand that are quite angular. So like, when you've got your thumb bent, this is quite angular. When you've got your fingers bent, that's very angular, sort of thing. So it comes into use when you know those shapes. But yeah, shapes are quite important when it comes to drawing people, really. Because if you don't know how to draw shapes, then it's going to be difficult. Yeah, that's how that works. No, it's not. This hand looks a bit weird, because what I've done is that sort of shape, which you don't usually do with your hand. And I think it's because this bit's quite narrow, and it shouldn't be that narrow if it was a hand. Probably because I've done the middle finger a bit thick, so it'd be more like this shape. Yeah, there we go. Be more like that, more or less. Yeah, yeah. I still got a lot of way to go before I can actually work out properly how to do hands, but you know, I'm getting there eventually. Eventually I'll work it out. But yeah, that's basically what I've worked out for shapes in terms of mitten shapes. In terms of my mitten thing for hands. You didn't... I'm saying a lot, aren't I? It's another drinking game. So you then have also this sort of hand. This hand also uses that mitten shape, but in a slightly different way. So what is basically done is, if I change my colour, what we have is the mitten shape is more cut off here, not cut off there. It's cut off across the hand, like this, and then you have your shape like that. So this time, the mitten shape doesn't actually it has the thumb included into the shape because, well, the thumb's there, and then it has this sort of curved out cut bit. So it still has a sort of mitten shape-ish, but it's slightly different. And then again, the pointing finger is coming off this palm, and the thumb is doing a sort of curve there and a curve in, more or less. It's sort of like, yeah, it's doing a curve and then it's got a little bit there. Now with the fingers behind it, if you can't see if I do it like that. Right. So yeah, let me take this off. Right. How am I supposed to... I'm now trying to work out how to do this. Right. So that's the finger. That's what we're doing, sort of thing. If you can see, these fingers all sort of make a certain shape. A sort of like curved thing. Let's put my glove back on. So they have a curved shape, sort of thing. So all you have to do is cut out where the last finger is, and then cut a little bit and sort of make one finger decide to come out a bit. That just gives it a bit more sort of flair, or sort of like more relaxed version of that pose in a way. But yeah, it is sort of about when learning sort of people and drawing people and body parts. It's about taking a bunch of pictures of them and then working out those shapes, working out what shapes make up each thing, and working out the poses that each of these things make. Reference images. All about reference images. When you're drawing people, always have a reference image. Never work off from your head, because that's just, unless you're a magician, it's not going to work. Always have a reference. Then you can also work out, because I mean, some of these, like this one, the fingers are too long or too thick, or all have you sort of things. So you need reference to make sure you're getting an accurate sort of representation of things. But yeah, once you know the shapes, then you can easily draw the different things. And that's basically what I'm doing. I am going through pictures, I am working out those shapes, and then I'm practicing them. I'm working them into actual real life stuff. Because if you just learn the shapes and never actually use them, then you're not going to get better. Because you're going to try and use those shapes, and then it's going to go weird. Like, sort of what's happened here. You need to actually practice these shapes over and over until you get to a point where you're like, you can just do the shapes, and then you're just like, boom, really cool hand, or something like that. So yeah, that's, I think that's my update for today. Hands, that's what I've been doing with hands. Hopefully I can get better at them, really. But yeah, that's what I've done so far in terms of hands. When it comes to tomorrow, I'll go over what I've been trying to work out in terms of faces, because that's another bane of my life as an artist, so that's going to be fun. But yeah, these are hands. This is my this is the shape that I use in terms of drawing hands, because it just sort of, one thing, even without the fingers, it looks like a hand, really. But it just sort of, it gives me an idea of what sort of hand shape there is, and it's sort of like, it's useful in terms of working out where things are. That's what shapes are. It's doing your basic sort of outline of the hand, working out where things are, and then making it more hand-like. Anyway, yeah. As always, when saying goodbye in these things, bye-bye.